to receive our ongoing communications and content digitally instead of email, please do scan the QR code, get on the group. It's obviously much faster to receive the information this way. Yeah, you can keep up to date on all our content. Our Asha Day program starts on Sunday. It's between 10 and 2 p.m. Amal will be led by Brother Hussein Darcy. It does include Niaz. Right now, I think we have close to 200 people registered. So, mashallah, we'll have a really good turnout for the program. We will have a Shame Gariba program that will begin at 7:15 that evening. As I know some of you have asked if there's going to be one. Yes, there will be. So later that evening on Sunday, we will have one, inshallah. And may I ask you to recite Dua Shifa for the following people. Brother Mirza Alam, Dr. Abdulaziz Sachadina, Sister Zarina Hirani, Sister Zareen Sajan, Sister Anjum Karmali, and all those that need our prayers. Please, Bismillah. Now I'm going to ask Sister Alicia Daya to please come up and give us a youth presentation on baby Fiza.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Yasin, uncles, aunties, and the oil community. My name is Alicia Daya, and today it is my pleasure to present to you one of the many wonderful women of Karbala. I want to share with you the story of a very special woman named Bibi Fiza. Bibi Fiza is especially important to me because my great-grandmother on my mom's side was also named Fiza. My great-grandmother was known for being a woman who shared kindness and grace throughout the community. Alongside my great-grandfather in Tanzania, she managed over 20 stores, interacting with her numerous employees and staff. She also raised 4 children, including my grandmother. This is an incredible accomplishment for anyone to manage all those responsibilities with such grace, especially 75 years ago. Highlighting these qualities is why I chose to speak about Fiza. When we hear about the events of Karbala, we usually hear about the brave men who stood with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But there were many strong women who played important roles. One of them was Bibi Fiza. Bibi Fiza was a servant in the house of Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam. But she was much more than just a servant. The house of Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam was not an ordinary home. It was an Islamic school and a haven for everyone who lived there. It was full of knowledge, faith, kindness, and respect. From Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam, Bibi Fiza learned the true teachings of Islam. She memorized the entire Quran and became a hafiza. In fact, she was so knowledgeable that she could answer any question with a verse from the Quran. This teaches us that the Quran is the best source of knowledge, and that with the right environment, anyone, no matter their position, can achieve great wisdom. The way Bibi Fiza was treated also teaches us an important lesson. One should never be rude or disrespectful to anyone who serves you in any way. In the household of Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali alayhi salam, servants were treated like family. This love and kindness helped Bibi Fiza grow into a woman of strong character, honesty, and deep faith. When the tragedy of Karbala happened, Bibi Fiza was there. She witnessed the pain and sacrifice of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his family, and his companions. After the battle, she was taken captive along with the other women and children. Later, she passed away in Damascus, where she is buried. So what can we learn from Bibi Fizza? First, we can learn that knowledge gives strength. Bibi Fizza's deep understanding of the Quran gave her the strength to stay firm during very difficult times. Second, we learn the importance of kindness and respect for every human being, no matter their role in our lives. And finally, Bibi Fizza teaches us that everyone has a role to play in standing up for truth and justice. Even if we are not in the spotlight, we can still make a difference by supporting others and staying patient through challenges. The women of Karbala, including Bibi Fizza, were not just witnesses to tragedy. They were active, brave, and strong in protecting the message of Islam. As we remember Bibi Fizza, may we all try to follow her example by seeking knowledge, treating others with kindness, and standing firm for what is right. Thank you.
Jazakallah, Alicia. That was amazing. All these presentations, these kids have worked so hard. It's absolutely amazing how well prepared they are, how well versed they are in the person that they studied. Thank you again, Abdulaziz. You really mentored them, helping them out. Can I have a loud salawat for all the work that they've done? I'm going to ask Sister Fatima Sajan just to come back up to the stage. She's going to talk a little bit about how you can support the oil community. She's been a longtime friend of oil. She used to be a board member. Really happy to have her talk about what we could do to take this thing forward.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sheikh Muhammad Yasin, cherished community members, Assalamu alaikum. Jabir, thank you for the warm introduction. I have to say that it's so inspiring to see all these new faces joining us this Muharram, so warm welcome to you all. I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about investing in knowledge, our shared journey this Muharram, and my humble request to you all. My heart is racing. This usually doesn't happen. Forgive me. So as we draw towards the conclusion of this 10-night lecture series, can everyone hear me? Okay? At the back? Okay. As we draw towards the conclusion of this 10-night lecture series, our hearts are steeped in reflection and remembrance of the profound sacrifice for truth and justice, and the importance of knowledge and spiritual growth in our lives. And so I want to remind you all that the Organization for Islamic Learning stands as a beacon for this very purpose, to provide accessible, authentic, and engaging Islamic education for all ages in an inclusive space that is judgment-free. We firmly believe that by nurturing a deep understanding of our faith, the organization empowers individuals, strengthens families, and builds a more compassionate community and a more just society. So for the benefit of the newer attendees this year, over the years, this organization has been blessed to witness the transformative impact that its programs has had. Through Quranic studies, spiritual retreats, debates on topics such as religious pluralism and AI, and inviting incredible speakers, the likes of Sheikh Arif, Abdul Hussein, Sheikh Bahmanpur, Dr. Kimji, Sheikh Panjwani, Sheikh Shomali, Dr. Thakim, and the list goes on. We've seen countless individuals deepen their connection to Islam. And to give you an idea of some of the charitable work OIL has done over the years, in 2015, during the Syrian refugee crisis, OIL sponsored 4 Syrian refugee families. OIL is part of the Muslim Friends of Humber group, where they contributed towards the Family Resource Center in the Cancer Unit. And OIL continues to be one of the largest supporters of the United Muslim Women Food Bank. Now back to events. We've watched young people find their voice in Islamic leadership. We now have a youth committee with over 20 youth, age range from 13 to university. And we see families that are connecting more profoundly with their faith. We see new Muslims embracing their journey with confidence. As a young parent myself with 2 kids, ages 8 and 4, I am so grateful and relieved that an organization like this exists. I've spoken to many of you over the years who've said that you wished an organization like this existed when you were younger. This, my dear friends, this organization exists. It is here now. To continue to expand this vital work, you've heard over the last few days and also earlier today about the Muharram Fund with a goal of $70,000. I would also like to echo my thanks for your immense generosity to bring us to $41,000. Alhamdulillah. But we need more. Each and every one of us here needs to consider this organization as one of your charities of choice. Give this organization legs. Let's beat this target and go beyond. I want you to consider this your opportunity to make a difference. As we gather on these last 2 nights, we welcome all the new attendees. We humbly ask all of you to help us bridge this gap. Your contribution, no matter what size, will make a tangible and lasting difference. For those of you who have already given, a heartfelt thank you to you. And please consider topping your donation. For those of you who are looking for other ways to help, consider getting involved and help this organization grow. We want to see more programming throughout the year. Perhaps you can get involved that way. So tonight, tomorrow, when you're thinking about giving, think of this fund as you're empowering the next generation. You're ensuring accessible learning for all. You're expanding our reach. You're preserving Islamic heritage. Think of it as Sadaqah Jariyah, an ongoing charity that continues to benefit even after you depart this world. As long as the knowledge and positive impact facilitates continues to spread, and it will. So as you can see, I wouldn't be my father's daughter if I didn't make this ask of you. And I'm sure many of you feel strongly, as I do, that to build a strong, knowledgeable, and vibrant Muslim community, it's a collective responsibility. It is through our combined efforts, our shared commitment, and our generosity that we can truly flourish here. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our intentions, our efforts, our contributions. May He bless all of you and your families for your generosity, and may He continue to make us instruments of good in this world. So thank you for your time, your presence, and your anticipated generosity. Salam.
It's now my privilege to introduce our distinguished guest speaker, Sheikh Muhammad Yasin Devji. Raised in Toronto, Sheikh Muhammad Yasin migrated to the holy city of Qum in 2006 to pursue Islamic studies in the Hawza. In 2010, he took a 2-year leave to study the Arabic language in the Sayyida Zainab district of Damascus. In 2012, he returned to Qum to continue his seminary studies, where he obtained a BA in Islamic philosophy and mysticism. He continued studying Islamic philosophy, mysticism, jurisprudence, and principles of jurisprudence to the advanced level. He is also a registered psychotherapist. Please recite a loud salawat to welcome Sheikh to the stage.
Can you all hear me in the back? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين لا سيما خاتمهم وأفضلهم محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. وعلى أهل بيت الطهارة لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين الحجة ابن الحسن عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن التقويم ثم رددناه أسفل السافلين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. My elders, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, in keeping with the trend that you have been seeing every night, I would like to dedicate my lecture to the women of our community, to our grandmothers, to our mothers, to our sisters, to our daughters, to our nieces, to all the women. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I know what it's like being a woman. It's impossible. But the reality is that we still very much, not just in our community spaces, but even outside, live in unhealthy patriarchal paradigms. Now, this is not an advocacy for any type of feminism or anything. No, this is just saying that there are unhealthy patriarchal paradigms in play in the society that we find ourselves in. I had a great wake-up call when I came back from the West, from the East, because the East is still quite patriarchal, to come back here and to be able to experience and work with some wonderful women and to discover what they go through, their journeys, the things that they face. Growing up, I had my mom, I had my sister and others, but I never really had that appreciation. But to be able to come back and sit down and have very honest conversation with my sisters to find out what the challenges they face, not just in societal, but just even physiologically what a woman goes through, we men can never ever even begin to understand. And that alone, I think, is reason why Allah gives precedence to our mothers in our society. So I don't want to say too much because, again, I don't want to misrepresent women because, again, I'm not one, but I just want to, from my heart, salute all the women of this community, all of them. Your laps are the cradles of civilization and your hearts are the nurturing force within every single society. Please recite a salawat. So we have arrived at our 9th night together. Tonight will be the second last in the series that we have been doing. Tomorrow night will conclude, and then Ashura Day and Sham-e Ghariba night will be left for eulogies to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. But tonight is our second last night, so as we will begin to be wrapping up our series. We have been on a journey. In the beginning, we began by introducing the concept of the fitra, that beautiful mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is that divine connection, that existential connection between humans and Him, that then serves to then become a container. And that container then contains, even if in potentia, the 7 virtues that Allah explicitly identifies that He loves in the Quran. We went through them one by one, and we also touched on the fact that when the fitra is awake, and when these 7 qualities are operating at an optimal level, they come together to form what is called Insan al-Kamil. Insan al-Kamil being the complete and the whole human being. So after embarking on this journey, we won't be looking at we won't be looking at tahara in this series, but we have covered six. We've covered 6 of the 7 virtues. So tonight, what I'd like to do is that over the course of these nights, we have, in a manner of speaking, created a toolbox for ourselves, right? We've created a toolbox and we have these tools. Now it's time, it's almost like we planted a seed on the first night. We recognized what that seed was. We nurtured that seed. And now that seed begins to sprout. It has now come out of the ground. And it's that first awakening into the outside. Similarly, another parable is that we have now been able to collect this toolbox. And now, what does it look like on the outside? When we look at all these factors, when we look at ourselves, when we look at the work that we've done, how do these factors then now interact with the outside world? Please recite a salawat. Tonight we explore what happens when our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by developing this toolbox, becomes so real that it naturally overflows into love for everyone and everything, ourselves and everything around us. But my dear brothers and sisters, I know some of us might be thinking, here we go, now he's going to tell us how to be activists and how to fix the world. That's not what this is about. This is just exploring a way of being in the world, taking all these into consideration. We live in a time where we are constantly bombarded with the world's problems: climate change, poverty, injustice, political division. Social media and the news outlets show us suffering from every corner of the globe, and it is overwhelming. Many of us feel overwhelmed. Many of us feel guilty that we're not doing enough, exhausted by the endless demands to care for everybody. Some have retreated, some have gone on extremes, some have retreated into purely private spirituality, whilst others have abandoned the spiritual aspect and put themselves only into work and pure activism. Both responses show how we've lost that beautiful integration of our traditional teachings. And here's what I hope will heal those of us who feel overwhelmed by all of this and the world's problems. Real love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't burden us with guilt about everything going wrong in the world. What it does instead is opens our heart so that we can naturally care for that which is in front of us, that which is away from us, and that service becomes as natural as breathing. We don't have to choose between being spiritual and caring about others. When our love for Allah is real, caring for His creation becomes the most natural way of loving Him. We'll discover, inshallah, tonight that the most beautiful spiritual people are those whose prayers make them kinder to their families, whose connection to Allah makes them more generous with their neighbors, whose closeness to their Creator makes them defenders of anyone being hurt. We'll witness how Amir al-Mu'mineen showed us that worship and service aren't two different things. They're one beautiful expression of a heart that has fallen completely in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we'll see how this integration was carried forward by his son, who embodied both the deepest devotion and most courageous love. Please recite a salawat. So for tonight's discussion, we return back to the Quran for the Quranic foundation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَأْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Worship Allah and associate nothing with Him, and do good to your parents. Notice how Allah has connected two things in the same breath: worshiping Him and being excellent towards people. In this particular situation, parents, but being excellent. Hasana comes from the same root, is from the same root as ihsan, to show presence and excellence towards people. And this isn't a coincidence. Why? Because real worship of Allah and real care for His creation are like two wings of the same bird. We can't fly with just one wing. There is a vertical dimension to our spiritual lives. The vertical dimension is that dimension where we worship Allah directly. That is through our ritual prayer, that is through our adhkar and dhikr, that is through the recitation of our Quran, that is through our ritual worship. That is the vertical aspect of serving Allah and worshiping Him. But there also is the horizontal spectrum. The horizontal spectrum is our worship of Allah through service to His creation, to be good to His creation. Both of them are worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is through the direct way, and one is through service to His creation. Both are equally important. You cannot have one without the other, because both are forms of worship. If we go back to some lectures ago, we talked about this. What is our purpose of life? مَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِي. I have not created humans and jinns except to worship me. And we said worship here is not confined to the ritual worship. Worship here is a holistic understanding of worship, which includes the vertical dimension and the horizontal dimension. Please recite a salawat. I repeat, these aren't two separate parts of spiritual lives that we are here trying to balance. When our vertical relationship with Allah is real and growing, it naturally creates the space for the horizontal love for His creation. And when we serve His creation with consciousness, it deepens our connection to Him. Why some people might get it confused. Some people might think that being spiritual means only focusing on the vertical, just prayer, just meditation, just personal relationship with Allah. Others might think horizontal is enough, just to be good people, and that we don't need formal worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But both of these approaches leave us incomplete, and like I said, trying to fly with only one wing. In our communities, and practically, we might see people who never miss the prayer, but are harsh with their families. Those who read Quran daily, but ignore poverty and suffering in their own communities. On the other hand, activists who abandon spiritual practices because they're too busy serving. Or even on the level of the mystics who withdraw from social engagement in pursuit of perceived inner purity. When we truly fall in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we start seeing His fingerprints and His signs through all of creation. We see it in the smile of a child, in the need of someone struggling, in the beauty of creation around us. Our love for Him naturally makes us want to care for everything that belongs to Him. This isn't a burden, it is a joy. This is an obligation, this is an overflow of our love. The problem arises when we try to compartmentalize, when this love becomes compartmentalized. There is a broken way of thinking that has hurt many of our sincere hearts. The belief that spiritual life and daily life are separate compartments. And again, for this particular part, I offer myself up as a case study. Growing up, the first thing I was exposed to were the rituals, right? And so my understanding as a youngster was that religiosity came from carrying out those rituals. And I carried out those rituals with full devotion and all. But then came a point in time, due to circumstances or whatever, the rituals on their own just weren't doing it for me. So I swung the other way, left the rituals to one side, and tried to engage in social activity and focus my time on social activity, doing this, doing that. But then, even on this extreme, circumstances, the one that I can think of is that I was hurt by people. And when I was hurt by people, I then proceeded to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, you know what, man, people are just rotten. Why am I even going to bother with people? So then I swung back to the other extreme. And my religiosity was based only on rituals, not only rituals, but not so much rituals, but more just focusing on my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Focusing on that relationship, be it through prayer, be it through meditation, be it through adhkar, all of these things. But then, somewhere along the way, please recite a salawat. But then somewhere along the way, that awakening took place inside of me, and I realized that, okay, you know what? Living on these extremes is becoming very exhausting, because what was happening was that on every extreme I lived on, the other was suffering. So, and more manifest was when I lived on the extreme of just engaging in spiritual practice, I found even my basic relationships beginning to suffer on a level. And so slowly, I realized that both are important. And today, I'm someone who sits in front of you who's trying to make both work. Both my responsibilities in the vertical plane, both my responsibilities in the horizontal plane. Now, it's interesting, if we look at this, and I have to also say that my nieces are going to think this is very corny, but I'll do it anyways. And that is that when we look at the vertical plane and when we look at the horizontal plane, both are designed to take us back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So both will return us back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala such that we get love. Please recite a salawat. I was actually going to call them up on stage and do it because apparently there's new ways of doing it, and I can't keep up. These type of dichotomous behaviors, they can show up as I'm spiritual on weekends, but practical during the week. Prayer is for the mosque, but work is just work. My relationship with Allah is private and personal. Social problems are for activists, not spiritual people. Why this breaks our hearts? When we separate our love for Allah from our daily relationships, something sacred dies inside of us. Our prayers become disconnected from how we treat people. Our prayers become disconnected from how we treat people. On the one hand, we're sitting here praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. And on the other hand, in our disconnection with people, that disconnection then doesn't allow us to manifest Ar-Rahman and Rahim to people, to manifest that compassion towards people, to manifest that sabr towards people, to have that taqwa, to understand and see the God in people. It becomes inhibited. Our spirituality feels abstract rather than lived. So we go into this place and we try to purify ourselves in a vacuum, but they will only ever be abstract because we have no practical application of this. And it's not that there isn't a connection there, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a manner of speaking, laysa kamithlihi shay. You cannot fathom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He will remain that abstract, right? In a way. And so there's no practical application of it. We miss out on the joy of seeing Allah's face in acts of service. We become judgmental because we're not practicing compassion, the compassion our prayers should be teaching us. That Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, that plea of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should flow through us. The idea is that we ask for that mercy, but in asking for that mercy is not only for ourselves, that mercy has to illuminate and manifest from us because we are part of a system, which is the system of creation, and we are part of a brotherhood and sisterhood, which is humanity. Our faith then feels irrelevant to the real challenges people face. Please recite a salawat. And we see the manifestation of this compartmentalization in some contemporary examples. First, business leaders who are devout in prayers, but ruthless in their dealings. How many times have we seen this? Politicians who invoke God whilst implementing policies that harm the vulnerable. Again, these examples are not new. Religious scholars who can recite beautiful theology, but show no warmth to their students who are struggling, very real struggles in life. Community members who are meticulous about ritual purity, but gossip cruelly about others. The loneliness of a disconnected spirituality. When we try to love Allah without loving His creation, we actually end up lonely, cut off from the very relationships through which He wants to flow. Allah wants us to love His creation, wants to love His creation through our hands. He wants to love His creation through our hands. Speak to them through our voices. Comfort them through our presence. When we disconnect from this, we miss the deepest joy of spiritual life. And on the other hand, on the other extreme, is the exhaustion of pure activism. On the other side, when we try to serve creation without having that connection to the Creator, we quickly burn out. We become overwhelmed by the enormity of problems. bitter when our efforts don't produce immediate results, judgmental of those who aren't as socially conscious as we are, prone to despair because we're trying to carry burdens which are too heavy for our very small human shoulders. Many of the burdens we try to carry, these burdens belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not for us humans to carry these burdens. And so looking at all of this, our case study for tonight is a very interesting case study. It's a case study that I'm sure all of you have heard, but you've heard this case study in a very, very different light, and we will look at it through a different lens, right? So if we want to see the culmination of that vertical and horizontal relationship coming to its pinnacle or operating at the optimum level, we look at an event that took place in Medina, and it was so beloved in the eyes of Allah that it went on to become immortalized in the Quran. So I invite you to take your mind's eye to the city of Medina. We find ourselves in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we see around us, people are praying, people are discussing, people are, engaging in whatever activities there are. In the corner, there is a man who's praying his salat, quietly, unassumingly, right? Into the masjid walks a beggar. Into the masjid walks a beggar. He goes here, he goes there, he goes everywhere in search of having his need fulfilled. He finds people are not responsive to him, right? He then comes to the man who is deep in prayer. The man is in the state of ruku. And whilst in the state of ruku, the man comes to him for his need. And in that moment, as that man is embroiled deeply in his worship, he reaches his hand out and puts his ring finger forward. The beggar takes the ring and puts it in his pocket and then continues on. Now, what can we gain by looking at this? Now it's interesting. Like I said, this verse is looked at through a very different lens. But we're going to look at it through this lens. Amir al-Mu'mineen in ruku, and the man himself was Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Amir al-Mu'mineen is in ruku, completely absorbed in worship, supposedly cut off from the world around him. But here's the beautiful truth of his situation. His consciousness of Allah did not make him deaf or ignorant to human need. Rather, it made him more sensitive to it. His connection in his vertical relationship with Allah did not cut him off from the vertical plane. No, it actually increased his awareness of his responsibility to service and worship Allah from the horizontal plane. When we're truly present with Allah, we don't become disconnected from His creation. Instead, we start seeing everything around us through divine eyes, feeling everything through a divine heart. The poor man's need didn't interrupt the Imam's prayer. It actually became a part of his prayer. It actually beautified his worship. Without breaking his sacred posture, without interrupting his prayer, he performs the most subtle, beautiful gesture. He extends his right hand and gently offers his ring. Sitting there, Rasulullah watching this. He watches this and is so moved that he raises his hands in prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in gratitude. And in that instant, Angel Jibreel comes down and reveals the verse. إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. Your guardian is only Allah, His apostle, and the faithful who maintain the prayer and give zakat whilst they are bowing. Now, if we look at this verse, before we get to this verse, let us go back to our toolbox, this toolbox that we have been putting together, and see if we can apply this toolbox to this divine moment. If we look at the fitrah, Amir al-Mu'mineen's fitrah is wide awake. He is in the state of prayer. And that fitrah being awake means that he is aware of his vertical responsibilities, he is aware of his horizontal responsibilities. If we take taqwa, that God consciousness within himself is evidence in the prayer and also in the awareness of the God in the beggar that came to him and the God in the need that is before him. If we look at sabr, the beautiful resilience to fuse these acts together and make it into one wholesome act of worship, rather than being annoyed by it or rather than it being a nuisance. If we look at tawakkul, the beautiful trust in Allah, to love to know that there was an opportunity to further enhance his worship and beautify it by considering both horizontal and vertical planes. The qist, the awareness to feel that this was a man in need and his inner adala told him it's not right that this man is in need and he is not having his need fulfilled. What does he do? He acts on, he manifests that adl in his qist and puts things rightfully by giving him the charity. And in tawbah, in the midst of his already return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, an opportunity to return even more to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by adding in the horizontal dimension, all in one act. Please recite a salawat. This verse is known as the verse of wilayah. Now this verse, as I said, is often used in polemical debates and theological discourse. But like I said, we looked at it from a different lens. While the verse establishes the guardianship, authority, responsibility of God, His Messenger, and Amir al-Mu'mineen, it also serves as a valuable lesson to us. And what is that lesson? It shows that the awliya, the friends of God, specifically in this verse, the Prophet and Amir al-Mu'mineen, operating at the top level of wilayah, are operating from that place where there is no dichotomy between their vertical and their horizontal worship. We too have a responsibility as humans, because again, this issue of wilayah, many times this issue of wilayah is discussed and it is presented as a concept which is far away from us. No, we also as individuals, because wilayah is responsibility. Ultimately at its core, wilayah is responsibility. Each and every one of us sitting here has wilayah. We all have responsibility. Whether that responsibility looks like between parent and child, child and parent, between siblings, between spouses, we all have that wilayah. And it teaches us that in order to perfect, in order to enhance, in order to develop our wilayah, we too have to develop our horizontal and vertical planes of existence, specifically as it pertains to our overarching worship, our raison d'etre. Please recite a salawat. And that wilayah ultimately goes back to tawheed. And again, I just want to digress for a moment. Terms like wilayah, terms like tawheed, terms like taqwa, terms like sabr. Again, I want to share something very personal. I keep hammering on about this every night, and I'm sure I beg your indulgence. There's only a couple of nights left, but I will keep hammering this point. These terms, for me, and again, I will present myself as the case study, because I don't want to project onto you. But growing up, I heard all these terms, right? I heard all these terms, I learned all these terms, right? But if you ask me, what does taqwa mean? Okay, taqwa means fear of God consciousness. Okay, what does that even mean? What does that even entail? Tawheed, forget everything, tawheed. My understanding of tawheed before I got to Hawza is that Allah is one. My understanding of tawheed is that Allah is one. That was it. I went through the madrasa system. I went through those very tedious and annoying classes on sifat-e-thubuti and salbiya, which I didn't take anything away from it. Do you understand? So my understanding going to Hawza was that Allah was one. The thing is, tawheed, my dear brothers and sisters, please, 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 if there is one term in your life, if you have the opportunity, learn about tawheed, because we are missing out. Allah is one does not even begin to do justice to the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without understanding tawheed, and listen to me carefully, without understanding tawheed, when we talk about God, when we worship God, we are projecting ourselves onto God. We are projecting our understanding onto God, and that is not God. That is not God. We are projecting. And I recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most projected onto entity in the entire universe. And you know what? He's also okay with it because He is that merciful. He's also okay with it because He is that merciful. But we all project onto Him. Learn about I invite you, really, really, from my heart, invite you, learn about Tawheed. There are scholars available in the English language all over the world who can sit down and go through this concept of Tawheed with you, who can teach you about Tawheed. Like I said, nothing you learn about Tawheed. It is such a beautiful concept when you take the time, because there's barakah in learning about Tawheed. When we intellectually learn about Tawheed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala automatically inspires our heart. So that gap, it is the one concept where the gap between the intellectual discourse and the discourse of the heart, Allah Himself puts together. Himself puts together. Please recite a salawat. Similarly, the other concepts as well too. I invite you and I encourage you to learn about them because they are innately part of us. Tawheed sits at the top because Tawheed is everywhere. There is nothing in creation that is devoid of Tawheed. Nothing. And when you learn about Tawheed, everything will flow after. Otherwise, you become like me. How did I become? I learned all these terminologies in madrasa. And what good did it do? I became, like Surah Jum'ah says, I became the donkey that carried tomes on my back because of a lack of integration. And that's the honest truth. So when we look at this example of Amir al-Mu'mineen, this sacred moment, what does it teach our hearts? Number one, it teaches us that consciousness includes and never excludes. You see how the Imam's absorption in prayer didn't make him oblivious to human need. It actually made him more aware. Real connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens our hearts wider, not narrows it. True vertical consciousness flows into our horizontal compassion. Number two, service can be worship, like we discussed, the holistic understanding of worship. Notice that this act of charity wasn't a distraction from prayer, right? It was a part of his prayer. The ring given in ruku shows that caring for Allah's creation can be one of the most beautiful forms of worshiping Allah Himself. Number three, integration is effortless when real. The Imam didn't struggle between competing demands. Should I pray? Should I help? Should I pray? Should I help? No, the two flow together naturally because when love for Allah is complete, serving His creation becomes natural as breathing. Number four, dignity in service. Notice how discreetly he helped. He reached his hand out without a fuss, let the beggar to take the ring, and that was the end of it. A subtle gesture that preserved the man's dignity whilst meeting his needs. Real service flows from love, not from the desire to be seen helping. It honors the person being served. It honors and preserves their God-given dignity. Number five, divine validation. Allah's immediate revelation of the verse shows us that this integration isn't just nice, it is the ideal spiritual state, and it is immortalized in the Quran. This is what Allah wants from us, hearts so connected to Him that His love flows through us to everything around us. Now again, I want you to indulge me in a practical exercise. Because even symbolically, if we look at the action of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was bent in ruku, which in talking about vertical integration, is one of the pinnacles of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to bow, to bend. You understand? So that is the pinnacle of our vertical integration and our vertical relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But more interestingly, what does he do? He reaches his hand out. And that symbolism of reaching a hand out, to each other is so profound. It is so profound because this is what Allah wants from us. When we serve humanity, when we serve each other, when we give charity, when we are there for each other in each other's struggles, us reaching out our hand is the manifestation of Allah Himself reaching out His hand to those who are in need. So I invite you. The exercise won't take long, but I just want you to experience in this moment. So the exercise is in pairs, and my brothers will probably have more difficulty with this than the sisters, but I want you to hold the hand of the person next to you. Just hold the hand of the person next to you. In pairs, yeah? You have to keep one hand free. You gotta keep one hand free. Yeah, you gotta keep one hand. Hold the hand of the person next to you. Hold the hand of the person next to you, and your free hand, I want you to place in the position of prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want you to close your eyes. And just for a moment, I want you to make a prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever you're thankful for, whatever. And I want you to pray for the person next to you. Just a few seconds. Pray to Allah and pray for the person next to you. Inshallah, please recite a salawat. I pray from my heart that whatever dua you made for yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the dua that you made for the person sitting next to you, may Allah accept that dua. May Allah answer that dua. May Allah increase you. May Allah remove difficulties from you. May Allah open your ways. And may Allah keep you happy and successful, dunya wal akhirah. Please recite a salawat. Simple ways to learn to live with two wings. Some practical advices, and then we move on to the eulogy. Number one, let prayers inform our relationships. After each prayer, take a moment to ask, how can the consciousness I experienced with Allah flow into how I treat people I will see today? Let your salah become a training for patience, for kindness, and presence with others. The same way you work on your patience, you work on your kindness and your presence with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, try that training you do with Allah, try and bring it into your relationship with others. Because again, it's ultimately the same thing going back to the same place, right? Number two, see service as conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we help our families, when we serve our communities, when we stand up for justice, do it consciously as a way of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always put Allah in the equation. Always put Allah in the equation. We are not independent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He's always there. It's for us to bring Him to our conscious minds and put Him in that relationship. Ask, how can I serve you, Allah, through caring for this person that you placed in my life? Number four, bring both wings to daily decision. For important choices, ask both questions. What would please Allah, and how does it affect others? When both dimensions align, we're living from that divine integration. Number four, practice the ring principle. Like Amir al-Mu'mineen, look for ways to help others that are natural extensions of our spiritual state rather than separate activities. Let our worship create opportunities for service, and let our service deepen our worship. Let it to go, let one to feed the other. Some contemporary applications that might manifest. Number one, let our morning prayers inspire patience with difficult family members or relationships. Number two, allow our gratitude to Allah to flow into our generosity with our neighbors and others. Number three, bring the peace of our dhikr into conflicts at work. Number four, using our religious knowledge to advocate for social justice. Number five, making our businesses expressions of Islamic ethics, not just profit centers. And again, we try to avoid extremes. We can avoid both disconnected spirituality and unsustained activism by regular spiritual practice that keeps us connected to our source. Number two, conscious service that flows from divine love rather than ego or guilt. I really like something I have to share with you. I thank all of you for your feedback, but there's one particular piece of feedback that Dr. Walji gave me. It wasn't feedback, he actually taught me something. And he said to me, this word ego is an acronym for me. I said, oh, do tell. He says it stands for edging God out. And it's brilliant. So thank you, Dr. Walji. I took that from you, and I have to give you credit for it, right? Sustainable engagement that recognizes our human limitations. Again, it's important to recognize our limitations. We are human at the end of the day. We cannot take on that which is too much for our shoulders. We have to be cognizant of that. Community support that prevents burnout and isolation. We can't do it alone. We cannot do it alone. We have to come together as a community to be able to carry these things out. Creating integrated communities. In our masjids, our community centers, we can model this integration by making social service as a natural part of our religious gatherings, which we do. Continue to nurture that. Continue to build upon that. Teaching children that worship and service are connected. That worship and service is not, salat is one thing, service is no. They are connected. And they're both important. One enhances the other and keeps enhancing the ajr because they both go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Supporting members who are struggling practically, not just spiritually. And I think we're also good at that too. But again, to continue nurturing it. Addressing real world issues from our pulpits and our podiums, not just theological abstractions. So as we look at this toolbox, it is my hope that we've developed, as that sapling is sprouting out of the ground, it is my hope that we have enhanced and developed a new worldview where we conclude and realize that our vertical relationship with Allah and our horizontal relationship with Allah are as important as the other, and both of them are relationship with Allah. One is a direct relationship, one is an indirect relationship. I say indirect relationship, but it still is service. It's service to Allah through creation. And it all fits into the big circle of worship. I did not create jinn and insan except to worship me. Please recite a salawat. Tonight is the 9th night of Muharram, where traditionally in our communities, in our subcontinent communities specifically, I'm not sure about the Arab and other communities, is we commemorate a personality who is the son of Imam al-Hussein. And what is special about him is that it is narrated that no one resembled the messenger of God in face, in voice, and in mannerisms as much as Ali al-Akbar. According to some reports, he was the eldest son of Imam al-Hussein. In other reports, he is a younger son of Imam al-Hussein. What we do know is that he was a son of Imam al-Hussein. Whenever Imam al-Hussein longed for the Prophet or anybody in the family, he would look to his son. And on the day of Ashura, when the tents shook with grief and thirst, all of Hussein's companions had gone to their Lord. It was this reflection of the Prophet who stood to seek permission to fight. He approached his father, tall, composed, and radiant. Father, allow me to go. Hussein's breath got caught in his throat. It was not merely a son asking to fight. It was the very image of Rasulullah and the final trace of Rasulullah left in this world. He wept aloud. "O my Lord," he cried, "bear witness against this people, for here stands a young man before them who resembles your Prophet most in looks and in character, and they will go out to kill him." As Ali al-Akbar received the permission from his father, as he rode out, his auntie Zainab cried from the tent, "My heart will not bear this," and she collapsed in grief. Imam al-Hussein lifted his hands and whispered, "O Allah, be witness, for a people whom you call towards your prophets, who we call towards your prophet's family, yet they slay them." Ali al-Akbar fought bravely. His sword sang the name of his grandfather. He returned, once wounded and parched. He says to his father, "Father, thirst is killing me. If even I had just a drop of water." Imam al-Hussein wept, "My son, be patient. Soon your grandfather shall give you drink from the heavenly cup, and you shall never face thirst again." The youth smiled faintly, kissed his father's hand, and returned to the battlefield. Then came the moment where he was struck a fatal blow. The youth cried, "My father, peace be upon you." Imam al-Hussein ran, but when he reached him, the spear was still lodged in his chest. "O son, life is no longer sweet after you." He lifted the body but fainted, and when he awoke, he pressed his cheek to his sons and called out, "O youth of youth, O beloved of Rasulullah!" He returned to the tents, carrying what he could of his shattered frame of his son. The family rushed out, and the women cried aloud, and Hussein whispered as he placed him down, "After you, Ali, after you, every sorrow is light. Allah la'anatullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimeen. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un."
We'll have Noha now.
Thank you. Matame Hussein.
Turn to our divine humanity as a foundation for Kamal. Discovering that true spiritual